Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Today we're gonna talk about soul health. We often talk about physical health and mental health, but I feel that if we focus on spiritual health or soul health, physical health and mental health follows. And for those of you who are new to the world of spirituality or have no idea about what soul health actually is, today's episode is actually going to give you a lot of clarity and to shed some light on this topic, we have Miri with us today. So, Miri, first of all, welcome and thank you for doing this. And we'll start with the basics. Why do you think spirituality is important for feeling better? How feeling better and spirituality connected with each other?
I personally believe that each and every human being is striving for love and connection and unity. And that is what we really want to feel. And I have learned through my own healing journey and my spiritual journey that I cannot fill this hole that I was feeling inside of me from the outside. So spirituality for me is a way and a form of life that helps me to connect with love, passion, joy, with all the good feelings within. And that helps me to step into that love and helps me to feel better. On the other side, there sits a lot of fear. And I think a lot of fear is present in our world today. And I do not mean healthy fear as in I don't run in front of a driving car. That is fear that keeps us safe. But I mean fear of survival, fear of not feeling safe, fear of not feeling good enough. All of those fears we carry within. And spirituality can be an answer and a guide and a pathway to work with this and help us and then feel better in the end.
Right, that's actually a beautiful answer. And as you said that there are a lot of fears, and I could actually remember shadow work because I somehow used to relate shadow with fear. And when I started my spiritual journey, or maybe I was put on the path, and I came across this subject, shadow work, I realized that it's really hard to see different parts of yourself, because that's what shadow work makes you do. So first of all, and I know not many people will be aware of what shadow work is or who this shadow self is. So I wanted to ask you, what is the meaning of, like, real actual meaning of shadow self, and why it is important to accept our shadows? Because for many people, shadow self or shadow work, this concept is very outwardly or unconventional. So what is your take on that?
Look, I fully understand. And when I started on my journey, I had no idea of shadow work. I was seeing a therapist for some other reasons, and she told me to work with my shadows. And I had to dive into the concept and understand. And at first I had a reaction, I don't have a shadow, it doesn't exist. And that is actually exactly what a shadow is about. The things we do not want to see about ourselves, the things we do not want to acknowledge about ourselves. And we live in a human body on a planet, right? So it's a planet of duality. That means there is darkness and light, day and night, everything comes in opposites. And we need to work with these opposites because they also exist within ourselves. Anything you feel ashamed of, anything you do not like about yourself, anything you do not want to see in yourself, and we all have this. That's what we put into the shadow, and we sort of pretend this part of us does not exist, but it's obviously still there, just by closing our eyes, we cannot make it go away. And if we want to grow personally and feel better and access the joy, the love, the compassion, we need to work with the shadow parts and look at those and love them, basically.
All right. And as you said that, certain shadows uh, if you start your shadow work, you are going to, unravel, or you are going to, your personality traits are actually going to be revealed to you if you start your shadow work, right? And as you said that we don't want to look at certain shadows, right? And personally, even like in the beginning, I was like certain shadows, yeah, they were easy to accept, and others I didn't want to accept them. So what would you say, like, what should we work on? Like, should all shadows be accepted, or is it okay to release certain shadows, or is it even possible?
I'm not sure if it's possible, to be quite frank, because I'm still on this journey myself, and we are human beings, right? So there will probably always be some part of us, I don't know, that stays in the shadow, but we can become more conscious about our shadows, right? So I think that is very, very important. And if we go into a shadow reaction, into a trigger reaction, and then we notice afterwards, we can take necessary steps when we're conscious about it and apologize or work through the triggers ourselves, right? So that is a very important concept. And I also believe that shadows come up in a sequence, It is impossible to look at your whole shadow in one go, because most of us carry so much of it, it would be too overwhelming to handle it all. So I do believe that our higher self, our soul self, whatever you want to call it, or refer to this higher knowledge that we all possess, that it guides us through the shadow parts and through the shadow journey, and serves us in a way that it gives only to us what we are able to handle in that very moment.
Right. And how can one accept the shadows one is ashamed of?
I truly believe this is probably one of the most difficult shadow aspects to look at when we feel ashamed. And it requires a lot of courage, a lot of courage. And from my own experience, what I'm ashamed of really sticks. It has a very, very sticky feeling, and it keeps coming up again and again in different loops. So what I can recommend in that case, first of all, understand that every human being has those shadow parts that we are ashamed of. It's an experience we all share. Most people do not talk about it, but we all have it, right? I think that sort of helps, at least it helps me to understand and be more open to myself and kind to myself. What also helps is, for me, reading or hearing about other people's experiences to understand we all have that in common. You could find a safe space, somebody you trust, so you can talk about it, right? Could be a therapist, could be friends, whoever you feel comfortable with. It's really important to release the emotions around the shame. So what you have to do, and I believe there is no other way or no better way. You need to walk through the feelings of shame. You need to allow yourself to feel it and release that through crying, through doing sports, body movement, whatever it is that helps you personally. So you have to figure that out. And if it's too overwhelming, go and find help and do it in a controlled environment so that somebody is there that can hold space for you. And call in forgiveness. It's all about forgiveness, and it has a lot to do with self-forgiveness. You might have to apologize to somebody else, but I feel forgiving self is probably the most difficult part in that journey. And that's something just keep working on it, calling in forgiveness, being kind to yourself.
Right. And as you said, like it can be difficult, to forgive yourself. I definitely believe that self-forgiveness should come first, because if we are not able to forgive ourselves, we probably will never forgive the other person as well. And it eventually it helps you to heal yourself, and you get more in touch with your inner world. So my next question is, how can we heal humanity by being truthful with our inner world?
Look, I believe that the problems that we face on this planet today, and there are problems wherever you look, right? That they mostly stem from us not acknowledging our own personal shadow, right? So what do we do when we do not acknowledge the shadow part that is still there, right? We established at the beginning, it does not simply go away. There are a few ways. So people project it onto others, they blame others, they go into denial, or they go into numbing patterns. And that just adds to the shadow and to the fear and to the negativity. So how can we get to a space where we can reduce this again? And again, I believe working through these shadows by sitting with them peacefully, hopefully, with help in a safe space where we can walk through these emotions and release those, can help bring it down, bringing love to that shadow aspect instead of making it bigger. And if every human being knew how to work with their shadow selves, and I think it's a problem that we do not know. We were not taught how this works, right? So if every human being knew how to work with these triggers, we could work on reducing it and thus make humanity and this planet a more loving space.
Yeah, that is so true. And another concept that I read on your blog was soul health. So I was curious to know, how do you define soul health? What is soul health, and how is it related to physical and mental health? And what are some ways to achieve it?
Look, I do believe that all the different aspects of health are connected. So the body, the physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health, right? So when you have a health issue that shows up in your body, it's not enough to just look at the body symptoms. You need to work with the mental patterns, with the emotional patterns, and with the spiritual patterns. That's how I see it. The soul for me, if we, and I define the soul as the part of me, the higher knowledgeable part, that part of me, I think in its core is healthy and beautiful and light and love, right? And what we experience on this planet in a physical body, in a physical form, are challenges that we have chosen previously. Sometimes it's hard to believe, I think. I find it hard to believe sometimes. And these challenges manifest on all of these different levels, right? But I do think that our soul at the very core is pure and light and healthy and beautiful. And that is true for everybody. And it has value. And it's equally valued for everybody.
All right. And another thing that I was curious about was emotional triggers, right? Because they play a part in your spiritual journey or even in the shadow work process. So, what are emotional triggers and how do they actually help us?
So, an emotional trigger, you can feel that in your body, right? When something happens to you, somebody says something to you, and you feel this anger or fear within you. And it's probably completely overrated when you look at that situation. But what an emotional trigger does in that sense, it takes you back in time to an event, quite often to a childhood event or teenage event, where you were not feeling seen or heard, or you were not feeling good enough, you weren't feeling secure, and you were afraid. So, and if you did not, and I never learned as a child how to work through emotional challenges when I was a child. So if you did not learn how to dissolve those feelings back then when you were a little child, this will have been stored in your shadow, right? So, and then later a similar situation comes up, somebody says something to you, it could be a very easy comment, something like, oh, that color does not look good on you, you know, and your world all of a sudden like collapses and you're like, what's going on? This is an emotional trigger and it takes you back to another event. So it serves, it's no fun. Like, it's terrible. I hate my emotional triggers, yeah, because working through them feels overwhelming quite often. And there's so much coming up that I need to release. But they serve as a portal and as an entryway into your subconscious. And if you are aware enough of noticing those triggers, you can say, wow, there's something here in my shadow that wants to be seen, acknowledged, and heard. And now I can sit with it and work through it and reduce my shadow again, you know, and take another step towards joy and love and compassion.
Okay. And I think in one of your blog posts, you had mentioned that you had written it very beautifully, that true belonging is about being yourself and not changing yourself. And I really loved that. So, and we often hear people say, just be yourself. So I wanted to ask you, what is the meaning of this, like being yourself? What is the meaning of being oneself? And also, like, if the whole point is just to be yourself, then why do we put so much emphasis on self development? Because self development would ask you to sometimes, not be yourself and be the improved version of yourself.
I love that question. It's such a great question. I think the point here again is looking at different levels, right? So I have a soul core, and everybody has a very unique soul core, and we are all connected, right? But we still have our own very unique soul loves, soul passions, and soul ways, like our soul personalities. And I think this is what I refer to in that sense. But what we do when we come onto this planet, we get overwhelmed with all of these concepts and expectations from culture, society, teachers, parents, friends, all of these people expecting us to be like this or be like that. And if we follow all of those outer expectations with the idea of feeling good enough, we will never be able to connect back to our core, right? So what I mean with that is going back to your own soul core. Really ask yourself all the time, every moment, if I'm doing this, if I'm choosing this, is this because somebody else expects me to, or is this because my soul, my true love, my true joy, my true passion sits with this, right? And so we need to actually change in the sense of working through all of these outer layers to get back to our core. And I think from there, we can expand again, because I fully believe every soul has a beautiful purpose, a beautiful mission on this planet. But if you don't know what it is, you cannot find it, you cannot work with it. But when you do the work and work through all of these parts, changing through it, you come back to your core, and then you can expand from it and expand into your soul purpose, which is change again, yes, but it's change based onto your soul's passion.
Right. And as you said, that everybody has a soul purpose, and I believe the same. And I think most of people are not able to question it or even live their soul purpose because, there are societal expectations, right? And there is need for approval from the outside. And in one of your blog posts, you said that human neediness prompts us to look outside for validation. And I totally believe that. So I wanted to ask you, like, why is it important to find that validation from within, and what steps can one take to actually feel self-validated, like what can they do, like, so that they don't have to look outside for any sort of validation?
Yeah, I love that question too. And I spent the first 35 years of my life trying to fill myself up from the outside, and it could be accumulating possessions or clothes or being great in sports, whatever it is. And I tried so many different avenues, and I always still had a lack within me, and it would never fully go away. I could never fill it until I started going within. And this going within in the end led me to having to release first all of the accumulated trauma and do all of the shadow work. But now I feel I can connect better with my soul again. My soul I can only find within and not on the outside. And I do believe that soul communicates with us all the time, mainly through joy and passion and excitement and love. So when you have these feelings, and everybody is looking for these feelings, for this fulfillment, for peace, for inner peace, serenity, when you have these feelings, then you feel great about yourself too. But that's only when you look on the inside and communicate with your soul and what your soul truly wants for you.
And I love that answer, actually. So this actually brings us to our last question. What services do you provide, and how can someone reach out to you, and what can you help them with?
Look, I have written about my own healing journey, which was very intense and difficult, involving all of the different aspects: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So I have a blog on this, and you can find that at worldofmiri.com. And my service to the world is that I've written about it very honestly, from a very personal point of view, because when I was stuck in my really, really dark cycles, what helped me was reading about the experiences of others. So this is a way for me of giving back and offering to anyone who feels they need guidance just to read. So I'm sharing my own story. By no means am I saying this is the way it needs to go. No, not at all. I do believe everybody needs to find their own way, their own path, and you need to see what resonates with you, and what does not resonate, just put it aside. That's totally fine. But this is my offering and my service. And I've also written a children's book. I'm working on a children's book series. If you want to look, can you see it? Oops. Where it's called Heroes of the Quest. So where I'm taking these concepts and putting them into children's stories, because children learn differently. Children do not learn like adults. Children need stories and fantasy to understand certain concepts. So those are my services, and you can have a look at my websites and connect with me. And I really, truly hope these words will help heal other people.
Well, definitely. And I think I have the link to your website and your book as well. So I'm going to put them in the description link below this video if anybody wants to check that out. And I actually have a lot of questions still lingering on my mind, but I know we both have like this short time period. So thank you for doing this. And anybody who is watching this episode or listening to it, I I hope you are getting some idea like where to start if you want to start your spiritual journey. Personally, I would say start with shadow work because that really helped me. Thank you, Miri. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.